Now, the team tell me in-house at Preston Innovations that one of the things they always get asked about is different rods and when and where and the selection of rods that we have. So they've tasked me with explaining to you guys what rods I use and when I use them, because obviously take a Superlite all the way up to a Monster Extreme, they're very, very, very different beasts. And I think if you're looking to buy a rod for your type of fishing, it's nice to know what type of rod you might need or what you might want to use when you get out there onto the bank. So I've just literally just finished my session and got my rods out of the bag, because I have a selection of different rods for different things, and I'm going to tell you about them, and then you can make your own minds up what you want to do. It's something that actually we're really proud of these days at Preston Innovations. We're constantly working on rods. I'm really privileged to go to a lot of the product meetings, well, all the product meetings, and we always have rods to look at, be that regenerating for the future or looking back at the past and making sure we're on point and looking at our current rods as well. So I think we're in a great place, and it means that you guys are getting the best fishing tackle that you possibly can get. Don't forget, these are the rods that I choose. You don't have to choose the same ones, but it's a nice little guide nonetheless. I'm going to start at the bottom end, and basically, if I could go fishing all the time with one type of rod, it would be the Superior X Superlites. Now, the Superlite range of rods has expanded now. They used to be SLs, they're now Superlites because they incorporate a 10 foot, 11 foot and 12 foot length. Now, I'm going to describe these rods. What you have to think about with these rods, it's all about what sort of weight feeder you're casting for the target fish you're trying to catch. So Superlite rods are really forgiving, soft rods, beautiful rods when you want to fish for basically anything but hard fighting, say carp and barbel. You don't want them for those sorts of fish really, you want a little bit more meat. But if you're fishing for anything else like F1s, smaller carp, skimmers, bream, roach, hybrids, you name it, a Superlite's going to be perfect. They're a beautiful rod just to have in your hand and a lovely action. The weakness of this rod comes with the fact you don't really want to be casting any more than about 30 grams. I mean, that's just a guide, that's an ounce. So the 10 foot, for example, I use that with feeders up to about 20, 25 grams, light feeders that I'm chucking short distances. We then have 11 foot, which I'd use a 30 gram as a maximum, and I would possibly try the 40 gram on my 12 footer. But again, all of them are for situations where I'm looking to hook fish that are playing really gently and I need to really forgiving at the top. All the action is soft all the way through, only a little bit of power here, which is why when you're going to cast, say like a heavier feeder, the rod just won't be up to it. But for a lot of the time, light, small feeders, shorter distances, these are brilliant. Just to give you some examples, feeder fishing here at Hallcroft, all I'm bringing is my 10 foot and 11 foot SLs for the winter because I'm targeting bream and skimmers. All other venues, say like Barston, Tamar, all those types of places. Any natural venue where you want to fish for smaller fish with feeders of say 20 and 30 gram, you are never going to go wrong with a Superior Superlite. That's how I would sort of categorize that rod. And in the Superior X range, we then obviously have the standard type rods, not Superlite. I mean, they're just called Superior X. And these are what I use for like, almost like bulk standard fishing, if you like. So from these go 9 foot, 10 foot, 11 foot and 12 foot. So there's a length there to suit every style of fishing. This is the 11 foot I've got in my hand, and this is typically like a 30 to say 50 meter casting rod for method feeders, say 30, 40 gram. Winder feeder, rocket feeders, 30, 40 gram, anywhere where you just need to cast a little bit more. So what is the difference between that and an SL? Where is the difference? The difference mainly lies in the lower portion of the rod. So what happens is, as you go to cast, obviously the tip almost folds behind you on most rods, and the power then kicks in at some stage, and the power has to be progressive into the rod. And what I like to do when we're looking at designing rods is go, okay, how much power do we need here? Can that take the cast that I need? And will that affect the action of the rod further up? So these Superior X rods are very much what I like to call through action rods. So as you like bend from the top, you don't really see it really soft at the top and then really stiff at the bottom. You almost see like a beautiful transition from top all the way through, which makes them the perfect commercial fishing rod, because when the fish are under your feet and they're lunging around, you've still got forgiveness here in the bottom, but you've also got enough power to keep those fish under control, which is why you would step it up. And that goes hand in hand with putting a bigger feeder on, the 30 gram method, a 40 gram method. These rods can take these sort of casts. So just as a guide, 9 foot, I'm using that anything up to say 25 meters on a commercial. 10 foot, I'm using that probably anything up to 35, maybe even 40 meters. I can cast them lovely because they've still got some strength. Anything over 40 meters, I'm looking at the 11 foot. And I would say I'd use the 11 foot up to about 55 meters before I stepped it up to a 12 foot. But again, it all depends on where you're going and what type of fishing you're doing. I use the Superior X's at Southfield Reservoir as well, because I'm usually casting 30 or 40 gram rocket type feeders. I need plenty of meat in the rod to make the cast, but I also need that softer action at the top to be more forgiving when I'm hooking those bream and skimmers. So you can see there that really, I would say for 90% of fishing, Superior X Superlite and Superior X standard type rods, they are going to cover you. They are going to be able to cover you anything up to 60 meters for any type of fish. You're going to be able to deal with them. I use Superior X 12 foots on the River Trent, for example, fishing with like 2 ounce feeders at 30 meters, catching roach, skimmers, barbel. I've caught them all. So they're a really extensive range of rods. That means you can basically cover a lot of things with 1 or 2 rods. So think about your fishing and how they might suit you. Of course, then there's like the step up. And the step up comes when we're talking about distance. And we have Distance Master and we have Monster Extreme distance rods. Now these 2 rods are real bruisers if you're not used to heavy rods. The first time I ever picked up a distance rod, I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't want to even go fishing with this. Now I hold these rods and think, wow, they're absolutely mega, because I do a lot of fishing 60 meters and above. I like a big cast. I like to cast heavier feeders, and this is when I need these types of rods. So for example, I've got a Distance Master here in my hand, a 3.8 meter Distance Master, and that'll take feeders up to about 80 grams. So, you know, if I was going on the river and casting a short distance, but I needed, say, a 80 gram feeder, I'd probably use this rod. You know, even if I was just casting 30, 40 meters, I wouldn't want to put an 80 gram feeder on one of my lighter rods. But if I wanted to, say, get a 50 gram feeder and whack it out to 70 meters, I'm going to need a rod with a lot more strength, a lot more power. And all the time in our rods at Preston Innovations, we try to maintain a fish playing action in the top and then take some power down below for the cast. And that's what Distance Master did amazingly well, because they're not like a really stiff rod with a quiver tip in, which can be great for casting. Let me tell you, that style of rod is really good for casting. It's awful when you're playing a fish. So what I want to do is be able to go whack, there's a 4 pound bream, and have all the lovely action of playing a fish in the top half of the rod and not having to worry about that fish like pulling too hard and pulling the hook out. That's what I get when I use the Distance Master. And I'm looking at these rods they come in 3.8 meters, 4 meters and 4.2 meters. And basically whenever you go up in length in a rod, that means you're trying to probably cast a little bit further. If you use that as a basic guide, you're not going to be far off. The 4.2 meter rod, I think in testing, we cast that up to 130 meters, but I've got to be honest, I never use these rods anything over 90 meters. I use Distance Masters when I'm fishing between 60 and 90 meters with method feeders, banjo feeders, big window feeders, on big reservoirs when it's nice and windy. For me, it's always a distance master. Take the problems out of your casting, just pick up a stronger rod, and it's going to make your fishing so much easier. And then finally, we've got the Monster Extreme distance. Now, these were something that, this is a really amusing story, because we basically got approached by some of the guys across Europe, and they said, look, distance master's not strong enough. We want to cast it to the moon. And I thought, wow, they're nuts. I can't believe they need a stronger rod. So we set about trying to do a stronger rod, and we didn't want to go straight in with like really super expensive rods. We wanted a rod that basically was really cost effective for everybody to use, because not everybody wants to cast at distance every week, but they might want something in their bag that can deal with the distance. So Monster Extreme was our project, and these have been incredible. This has been one of our most popular rods across the last year, because there is so much power at the butt that you can cast big distances almost effortlessly. And what I was trying to do when we set about doing this was keep the features of Distance Master, as in I still wanted a fish playing action in my rod, but I needed the strength at the lower part of the rod to be a little bit stronger for a little bit longer, and that meant I could cast a lot further. And that is what Monster Extremes have done. They are real tools. If you are looking to cast over 90 meters, a Monster Extreme is your go-to. We actually do these now in 12 foot, which is a beautiful rod, by the way. That's a short rod that you can really punch hard, but these go all the way up. This one in my hand is a 13.2, that's 4 meters. And this is my go-to. I've actually got this set up for the River Trent at the moment, because I'm doing some fishing on the River Trent right now with really heavy feeders. I'm fishing with like 120 gram feeders, and this rod, well, let's see what it says on here, 180 grams. I've never even looked at the grading, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no feeder I can't cast with this rod. I don't use anything over sort of 150 grams anyway, never have done. But if I wanted to cast 50, 60 meters with 180 grams, I could with this rod. But if I want to chuck this 100 meters or more with, say, like a 90 gram window feeder or a big banjo, this is going to be the rod. So you can see by across all my rods, and what's really interesting, there's a huge cost difference, you know, between a Monster Extreme and a Distance Master. I'm not precious about the price. All for me, I'm always looking at what rod suits what I can do. Monster Extreme are at the lower end, Distance Master are at the higher end. It's about having the tools to do what I want. One, to enjoy my fishing as much as I possibly can, but more importantly, to do it properly. I always used to struggle with my fishing when I was younger, with 2 or 3 rods, trying to make them work. Don't do that. Go out, get yourself a rod that's going to do the job properly. I guarantee you will enjoy your fishing more if you do.